You feel things deeply, but you don't show them. You can be sitting with people, listening, nodding, present, while an entire emotional conversation is happening inside you that no one hears. You don't interrupt. You don't overshare. You don't explain what hurt or why it mattered. People assume you're calm, stable, maybe even distant, but what they don't see is how much you notice, how much you absorb, how carefully you choose what not to say. You're not private because you feel less. You're private because what you feel matters too much to hand out carelessly. And that difference has shaped everything. Being private about your feelings doesn't mean you don't have them. It means you experience them internally first, sometimes only. When something happens, your instinct isn't to speak, it's to pause, to sit with it, to understand it before deciding whether it deserves words at all. So when someone asks how you're doing, you often say you're fine, not because you're hiding a secret, but because the truth hasn't finished forming yet. You tend to process quietly. You replay moments in your head. You examine tone, intention, meaning. You wait until your emotions make sense to you before offering them to anyone else. For many people like you, this didn't start as a personality trait. It started as a response. At some point, expressing feelings didn't bring clarity or comfort. It brought confusion, dismissal, or the sense that you had to explain yourself just to be taken seriously. So, you adapted. You learned that emotional privacy felt safer than emotional exposure, that keeping things inside gave you time, control, and protection. Psychology suggests that when expression feels unpredictable, people naturally turn inward, not to disconnect, but to self-regulate. And over time, privacy stops feeling like a choice. It becomes the way you move through the world. The part no one talks about is how heavy emotional privacy can become. Because when you keep everything inside, you also carry everything alone. People see your composure and assume you're okay. They lean on you. They confide in you. They trust your steadiness. And you give it, calmly, reliably, even while your own feelings stay unspoken. Over time, this creates a strange imbalance. You know a lot about others, but very few people know what it actually takes for you to stay this composed. Sometimes your silence is misread as distance, as indifference, as emotional coldness. Not because you are those things, but because your inner world doesn't leak outward. So you become the strong one by default, the one who doesn't need checking on, the one who seems unaffected. And that role can feel quietly lonely because you do want to be understood. You just don't want to have to translate your entire inner experience to earn that understanding. There's also the exhaustion of constant self-containment, holding reactions in, softening your responses, choosing restraint even when something inside you wants to be acknowledged. Privacy starts as protection, but over time it can begin to limit closeness. Not because you don't value connection, but because connection starts to feel risky when it requires exposure you're not ready to give. And the tension grows here. You crave depth, but depth, for you, has always come with a cost. Here's what most people misunderstand about emotional privacy. It isn't about being closed off, and it isn't about being afraid of feelings. It's about memory. At some point, you learned that sharing emotions didn't always lead to safety or understanding. Sometimes it led to being rushed, misinterpreted, or left feeling exposed without being supported. So your mind did what it's designed to do. It adapted. Silence became a way to stay regulated. Privacy became a way to stay accurate. You learned to hold your feelings until they were clear, contained, and controlled. This is the reframe. You're not private because you lack trust. You're private because you respect the weight of what you feel. You don't want emotional closeness that's careless. You want connection that can actually hold what you'd share. For you, expression isn't impulsive, it's selective. And selectivity isn't emotional weakness, it's discernment. Being private often means you feel deeply enough to be careful. Careful with timing, careful with people, careful with context. So the quiet truth is this: you didn't close yourself off. You learned how to protect something valuable. Being private about your feelings is not something you need to outgrow. It's a way of relating to your inner world that developed for a reason. and that reason deserves respect. You don't owe emotional access to everyone who asks. You don't need to perform openness to prove you're healthy. Privacy is not avoidance. It's pacing. What matters is the difference between being private and being unreachable. Being private means you choose when and with whom you open. Being unreachable means no one ever gets close enough to know you. And those are not the same thing. You can honor your natural tendency toward reflection, while still allowing one or two safe channels to exist. Places where you don't have to explain every detail, just enough to be seen. Trust, for you, isn't built through sudden exposure. It's built through consistency, through emotional safety over time. You're allowed to open slowly. You're allowed to need clarity before sharing. You're allowed to keep parts of yourself sacred. Depth doesn't need performance, and silence doesn't mean emptiness. Your feelings don't become more real when everyone knows about them. They're real because you feel them. And learning to honor that without isolating yourself isn't about changing who you are. It's about letting your privacy serve connection, not replace it. If this felt familiar, let yourself sit with it for a moment. You don't have to explain anything. You don't have to open up all at once. And if staying connected to reflections like this feels grounding, you're welcome to stay here.